Hello, and welcome back to Ask a Newsworker. There's a saying in journalism, there's a saying that's out there. It says, journalists write the first draft of history. The first draft of history is written by journalists and reporters. And what does that mean? That means that journalists and reporters are the first people to show up to an event, an incident, a disaster, a tragedy, anything of significance that happens in the world, anything that's worth writing about, in effect. They're the first to be there and to write about it. You might not have thought about that before this moment, but every single significant thing that's happened anywhere, from a war to a plane crash to even a basketball team winning a championship, someone had to be there to write about it, to note that it happened. Writing is effectively notation of language, documenting that something has happened. And yes, reporters and journalists will be the first there. So any significant thing that's ever happened had to be written about for the first time. And often, at least in recent times, last few hundred years at least, it would be someone considered a reporter or a journalist, any sort of writer. So reporters, writers, journalists, people who show up to current events that are current in that time, are writing the first draft of history. Is this accurate? Would I say it's accurate as a news worker? Yes. Everything, once again, has to be written about for the first time. But what do we also know about first drafts? If you've been in school, especially college, university, what do you know about first drafts? First drafts are often not the best drafts. The first draft of anything is usually not the best, most perfect version of that possible thing, of that piece of writing. And that doesn't just go for journalistic pieces, it also goes for novels and screenplays and nonfiction books, works of history. Generally, the first draft is not your best overall draft. And I think the same thing could apply to journalism itself, to daily journalism, daily news reporting. A lot of times, not all the relevant information will be available to the reporter or journalist in question, but they have to publish something, and so they will publish what they have in that moment. It doesn't mean they're necessarily trying to leave details out or to mislead the public. It just may so happen that they don't have all the required information, all the complete information at that moment, and are just putting out what they already have. Some people get mad at the news because they'll discover later on, hey, you missed this fact, you missed this detail, you didn't include this, and they'll accuse the media of deliberately leaving out information or misleading the public, when the truth is that, as I've said in other videos, often the media themselves don't know what's really going on and are working with a limited understanding themselves. We're all sort of awakening from a certain ignorance, to put it philosophically. We're all in a process of discovery. The news business, news workers are discovering what's happening in the world alongside everyone else. They're just a little closer to what's happening. When an incident happens, news wires generally learn of it before the general public, because their whole business is centered around finding out what is actually going on in the world and then telling other people about it. Again, the media is literally the medium between you and what is happening in the broader world. So there's a first time to learn everything. There's a first time to write about everything. And yes, journalists and reporters are often writing the first draft of history. But once again, the first draft is flawed. It's not perfect. There's details missing. There might be names misspelled. There might be facts wrong. It's generally not intentional. If the person is a true journalistic news professional, they will not do this intentionally, but it does happen. And I would just caution everyone to remember that when you're reading news, especially when you're reading breaking news, when something is happening right in the moment you're learning about it, there will be flaws, there will be mistakes, because it's the first draft. It's the first draft of history. So keep that in mind. If you're reading about a topic or an event or an unfolding situation and you're finding that mistakes are being made or corrections are being issued, you're reading a first draft in its formation as it's happening. You're reading the first draft of history as it's unfolding in front of you. And the people who are writing and publishing information about this particular event, incident, whatever it may be, are learning about it for the first time themselves. Like, imagine you learned about something for the first time and then you had to quickly tell a bunch of other people what happened. You might get some things wrong. You might flub a few names. You might get some facts or some numbers misplaced. It happens. It's a fact of life. News people are human beings. The media is a collection of human beings who have dedicated themselves professionally to news gathering, to finding out what's going on in the world. And there will be mistakes made. There are flaws to the process. It's not necessarily intentional. It's just the realities of assembling a first draft. So yes, journalism is often, it's pretty much always, the first draft of history, but first drafts are flawed. And that's just the truth. And that's what this channel is all about. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more videos. Leave a comment, write me an email if you have anything to say about this, and we'll continue to talk about the news here on Ask a Newsworker. Thank you.